What's going on, everybody? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday.
Happy weekend. Happy NFL playoffs. Happy what is typically considered the best weekend of the NFL season as far as a product perspective.
All I know is there's football today and there's football tomorrow. Meaningful football today and tomorrow.
This is this is generally speaking, this is one of the best weekends of the year for football as far as it's 4 games that include 8 of the best teams, if not the best teams in the NFL this year. So it's going to be fun. It's a good weekend. It's a good weekend to kick back, relax, watch some games.
At this point, we're looking at elite quarterbacks everywhere with the exception of San Fran.
All up and down the slate. You have really strong quarterback play.
I wouldn't say Ryan Tannehill's elite either, but his offense runs through Derrick Henry, who is elite and back. So
he's pretty damn good.
He's all right. He's very good. He's above average, but he is not elite.
No, he's not elite.
He's not Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Matt Stafford level.
Tom Brady.
Tom
I would say Joe Burrow is probably
Joe Burrow is ahead of Ryan Tannehill and of course Garoppolo. But this should be an interesting week, and it'll be fun to see it how it pans out. I really hope the Bills win. Gotta say, a little biased.
Well, that maybe is the marquee matchup of the weekend.
I think it's it's one of the most interesting. I mean, that the Rams matchup is going to be interesting too.
The Packers have some demons to shake. They've lost to the 49ers 3 straight playoff games with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback.
Yep.
So there's a lot of narratives. We start in Nashville this weekend. The top seed in the AFC, the Titans, they take on the Bengals, who were able to I don't know if steal is the right word, but they got a win last week against the Raiders in the wild card round.
They are in that. They didn't steal.
Yeah, they earned it. Yeah. It took a last-second interception to seal it. I guess that's kind of what I was alluding to or getting at. But Titans get Derrick Henry back. He's been activated off injured reserve. Can't imagine he's on any type of pitch count in the playoffs.
They came out and said that he's not going to be on a pitch count. So we shouldn't have to worry about that at all.
No restrictions for Derrick Henry. So that makes this matchup much more compelling. If the Titans didn't have Derrick Henry, I'd probably be picking the Bengals outright to win this game. But Derrick Henry is the type of player that changes the narrative of any single game that he plays in.
Yeah, they could bottle him up for 3 quarters and then he just starts gashing them in the 4th because they continue to give him the ball and he's just such a gigantic human that at that point of the game, nobody can tackle him. So
he just wears players down, wears the defense down.
Yeah.
So
he is the ultimate wild card player in any matchup for any team. Over any of these other players, I truly believe outside of the quarterback position for the majority of these other teams, Derrick Henry is the biggest wild card. As far as just a game-breaking player.
Yeah, the offense runs through him. He finished top 12 in, I think, rushing yards. I think he like yards after contact, multiple rushing statistics. He finished in the top 12, playing only 8 games. So that gives you just like a sliver of a glimpse into his impact.
It took 3 weeks, I believe, for the next best running back in fantasy to overtake his fantasy points.
For Taylor to overtake him.
And just because the nature of how dominant he is as a running back, he kind of defeats the narrative that if you running is worse than passing. Because it allows the Tennessee Titans. It allows the Tennessee Titans to play great off of play action. It allows them to control the pace and flow of the game to a certain extent, and it usually allows them to stay ahead or at least competitive as far as point wise. Not many other teams in the NFL can feed their running back and keep up on the scoreboard. If you're feeding your running back, you're probably not keeping up on the scoreboard. At least in today's NFL, outside of if you have Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry.
This game opened at Titans -3.5. And I would say almost 100% of the time, if a running back gets ruled out, it doesn't change the line. It doesn't change the expected points to be scored. When Derrick Henry was activated, the Titans gained another half a point as far as the spread. Now it's Titans -4. Just the fact that they're getting an extra half a point because a running back got activated tells you the type of impact that Derrick Henry has. There's been plenty of times where, the likes of Ezekiel Elliott gets ruled out. The likes of Saquon Barkley gets ruled out. You take your pick of the litter, except for maybe the exception, maybe being McCaffrey. When these running backs don't end up ultimately playing, the line doesn't shift. The line doesn't move. That's Vegas telling you, the bettors. That's Vegas telling you running back doesn't matter. Yeah. The running back doesn't matter. It has much more to do with the quarterback and the offensive line, how the offense is going to play. The fact that the Titans are getting an extra half a point with Derrick Henry getting activated just tells you the type of player that he is. With that said,
who do you think wins this matchup?
I think it's the Titans. I think the Titans win this game. I don't know that they cover 4 points. This could be a 28-20, 25 or 27-24 type of game where it's super close and the field goal is the difference. Because the Bengals have a good offense in their own right. Strong passing attack, which is the weakness of the Titans defense. So what the Bengals do on offense, this is a good matchup for them. But Derrick Henry is that type of player.
Yeah.
Who changes the game. Even at the running back position, that gets so little respect when it comes to determining the outcome of the game. I hate to say it, but rightfully so.
If Joe Mixon was out, the line probably wouldn't change for the Bengals either way.
It might go back down to, it would probably still be Titans -4. The Bengals would not, maybe the Titans go up to -4.5 in that point. Maybe. But I think the expectation in this game is going to be that the Bengals are going to throw a ton anyway. They've been throwing. They threw more on first down. Right. They threw more on first down in the wild card round than they did all season long. I think that narrative continues for Cincinnati today. I think they're going to try to exploit a vulnerable Titans secondary. So, yeah, if Joe Mixon was surprising or, maybe surprised or not, let's just play the narrative. Joe Mixon's ruled out. I don't think the line changes at all.
Right.
That's no disrespect to Joe Mixon. Right. That's just how it goes.
Joe Mixon is a great top 5 running back, but he's not Derrick Henry.
No.
He's not going to change everything about the game coming into the game.
So that being said, I do think the Titans win this game today in Nashville at home. They have the bye week. They had the advantage of the week's worth of rest. Now they get to play at home and they get their star back, which is a boost to the team's morale, most likely in such a way that we can't chart. We can't like put this on a spreadsheet.
And that helps every single skill position player just because of the X factor of having Derrick Henry on the field.
Just him being.
It's gonna help. Not Julio Jones. Just not gonna help. It's not gonna help Julio Jones, but it's gonna help AJ Brown for sure.
It might help Julio.
I have no faith.
Because it's going to certainly help Ryan Tannehill. I guess that's kind of that's the connection I was making. I do think Titans win. I don't know that they cover. I'm not I don't normally bet the spreads.
I want the Bengals to win,
but I would probably take Titans -4 if I were to bet the line. I think the Titans win this game.
But I want the Bengals to win.
Well, as a Bills fan, you want the Bengals to win, but I'm just telling you what I think is going to happen.
Just even outside of me being a Bills fan,
You're just rooting for the Bengals.
Man. I mean, young.
It's a fun offense
with a
Joe
ton
Burrow's
of attitude, a ton of his game face is ridiculous. After the games, I love how he's just like, oh, it's nothing.
This is the standard in Cincinnati moving forward.
It's not even just like on to the next game. Like that's NFL talk. I feel like I really get the feeling watching him that he's really just like wired a little different. He's wired a little different.
He's going to be good for a really long time, win or lose.
I did not see him being anywhere near as.
Oh, you did? I had high hopes for Burrow at the second he was drafted first overall. The second
I know you had high hopes. I didn't see this happening.
Well, he's arrived, and he's the real deal, win or lose.
I didn't see him after what Justin Herbert did last year. I didn't see Joe Burrow coming in this year and being better than what Justin Herbert did last year, and then coming into this year.
Okay.
But at this point, I believe you got to rank Joe Burrow ahead of Justin Herbert. The weapons are better.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's see what he's made of today. Not that it makes or breaks his the perception of him, but let's see what he's made of today in his first road game. That's the early game. Pivoting to the night game, this one's going to be fun. One of the most common matchups in the playoffs in NFL history. San Francisco travels to Green Bay. It's supposed to be about 10, 11 degrees for tonight's game to play Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. I already mentioned it at the top of the stream. Aaron Rodgers has faced the 49ers in the playoffs 3 times in his career. He has lost all 3 games. At least 2 of those games are on the road. I can't recall if they played a home playoff game against. I think they did. There was one home game that they played against the 49ers. That was with Colin Kaepernick at quarterback, and they went in and they beat the Packers. So 2 games on the road, 1 game at home. The Packers have lost all 3 of those games. So Aaron Rodgers has an opportunity to shift that narrative and get a little bit of revenge tonight. Will he do it? We'll see. This is a good 49ers team that
Jair Alexander back.
Yep.
Zadarius Smith back for the first time this year.
Reinforcements for Green Bay. Yep.
He got knocked out week 1, and this was a guy who had double-digit sacks last year, so he solidifies their D-line.
Yep. And Jair Alexander is when healthy, a top 5 cornerback in the league.
Exactly. Yep.
So reinforcements for Green Bay. Obviously, the cold narrative always plays into the Packers' favor, playing at home in Lambeau.
And it looks like the Niners are going to have Nick Bosa and Warner.
Nick Bosa cleared concussion protocol. He doesn't have an injury designation. So every team is close to full strength as far as they can.
It should be a really fun game. It
should be a really strong game. I think the 49ers match up well against the Packers. The Packers' run defense, I don't know if it's like sneaky leaky, but it's leaky. Sneaky leaky.
Hey.
The Packers' run defense can be exploited. And the 49ers, we just got done talking about if we were to rank the quarterbacks remaining in the playoffs. Garoppolo's near the bottom. They're going to run the ball.
Zadarius Smith should help, though.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But
not that's not
changing no lives. Putting Deebo Samuel in the backfield almost, in a way, indirectly, kind of neutralizes the impact of Jair Alexander. because he's not going to have the opportunity to cover Debo one-on-one on every single play. So
no, he'll cover Ayuk, and that's
that's whatever. You take that
think,
if you're the 49ers.
Right, but if you can put one player on, and based on how they operate, Ayuk is their number one wide receiver. In that he plays that position. He's not their number one weapon. Yeah. Debo's their number one weapon.
Yes.
And Kittle is their number two weapon. He's their number three weapon, Ayuk, but he's their number one wide receiver in that he plays that number one wide receiver position.
Yeah.
If you can take that completely out of the equation with one player, that's a win.
So I mean, it's a pseudo win.
You can devote more, like some of the safeties up top, and maybe one of the linebackers, divert one of the linebackers to help out with Debo, and I think that's a win. If you have a guy out there, if you got to bracket a guy with two players, and then account for Kittle and Debo and Elijah Mitchell, it's a lot worse. So I mean,
it's a dynamic offense in San Francisco that causes issues for defenses. They cause mismatches by
considering how allergic Garoppolo is to fantasy production himself. It's pretty incredible how DFS, efficient that offense is, and it's a credit to Shanahan.
I mean, he's great offensive mind. You can't possibly consider Jimmy Garoppolo if you're playing DFS. He's probably the cheapest option on the board as far as the starters go, but that doesn't mean that I want him just because he's the best value based on cost. Jimmy is a steady hand for the 49ers and a good option for the system that they want to run. That doesn't translate for fantasy though. So Jimmy G can safely be left off of your DFS lineups. But San Francisco, that doesn't mean I don't think San Francisco can go in and win this game.
No, it's the case of top-down better roster versus better quarterback up top.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, that's what it is with Green Bay. They get some people coming back to help out, but it's still that machine doesn't run without Aaron Rodgers.
Well, of course not.
If they got to rely on Trey Lance, that machine can still run in San Fran. Because they're running with Debo. They're running with Elijah Mitchell. And Trey Lance, as long as he can play game manager, they still got a chance. If Jordan Love has to come in, Green Bay's dead.
It's over.
Yeah.
Right. That's probably not going to be the case, though, for the Packers.
That was just to make a point about how top-heavy Green Bay is.
Sure. No, they are top-heavy. But their top-heavy is better than other teams that might be top-heavy. I think the Packers I last saw are 5.5-point favorites tonight. Ultimately, I know San Francisco poses a great challenge and a great threat to any team that they play, and I think this is going to be a close game. I would pick the Packers. I would take Packers minus 5.5. I do think the Packers cover. I think they could win by a touchdown tonight. The Aaron Rodgers to Davante Adams connection at home is lethal. Davante Adams, again, averages a touchdown at home for his career. He may have slightly bumped that average up a little bit after this year.
That's an insane number.
Yeah,
wow.
He averages a touchdown. He is a layup. Davante Adams is a layup for DFS purposes. If I were putting a DFS lineup together for this weekend, as much as I like Joe Burrow on the road in a potential negative game script, and as much as I like Josh Allen in a situation where the Bills probably, not that they don't ever want to stop throwing anyway, but they're really never going to stop throwing in Kansas City, I would fire up the Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams stack and build around that.
And I'd probably pick from one of those running backs too. AJ Dillon. I probably would. I'd probably
AJ Dillon would be my
running backs in DFS and just get that triple stack and roll with it.
At home.
Yeah.
10 degrees. The wind chill is probably going to make it feel like it's in the single digits, if not 0 degrees. This is AJ Dillon weather. This is AJ Dillon time.
And he can catch passes.
Yes, he can.
He's not just a big back who doesn't catch passes.
No, he's one of the most intriguing running backs moving forward, for dynasty purposes for at least the next couple of years.
Yep.
I think
because AJ, we're gonna get to it later on. We're gonna move into a redraft 2022 running back rankings discussion. So we're gonna get into some of the to this situation exactly. But Aaron Jones is gonna be 27, which is the age you kind of want to start moving off of running backs. And AJ Dillon's right there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
it's the time to
now
start.
They just re-upped
thinking
with
about
Aaron Jones,
moving on.
but
Right,
it
just
could be
this
a
past
passing
year.
of the torch situation where Aaron Jones starts getting the AJ Dillon workload and vice versa. From earlier in the year, I believe that switchover has happened progressively throughout the season.
I'll give my thoughts. I wanna do like a quick
let's
rehash
get to that.
or just
Let's get to
preview
that when
like
we
a
get to that.
personal face mask preview of all of the games. But
Yeah.
I do have some thoughts on that. That being said, for tonight, I do prefer AJ Dillon to Aaron Jones for DFS if you choose to play. I think he's in line for a potential 2-touchdown game, like in the cold, if the Packers are playing with a lead as expected. I think the Packers move on. I think the both 1 seeds advance. If I had to pick a more likely upset, I would actually probably lean San Fran just because they've had the Packers number. But I'm not actually predicting either one seed to be upset.
I'm going to go Green Bay. I think Aaron Rodgers has been playing out of his mind all year.
Yeah, I mean, and that's
and I think that continues.
That's a normal narrative for Aaron Rodgers. Like, oh, Aaron Rodgers is playing phenomenal. Water is wet.
This year's been a little different.
He's been very good.
Last year, this year's been a little different. The
He's
connection
been very
with
good.
Davante Adams has been just as strong as ever, but he seems like he has that connection with whoever's out there this year.
The last I saw him, speaking of whoever's out there, Marquez Scantling is doubtful to play. So obviously, anytime a player is ruled doubtful, they are ruled out. 95% of the time.
Would you triple stack with Davante Adams and Allen Lazard then?
I would. So
would you consider that kind of triple stack?
I am quintuple stacking.
Yes.
Here's and then I'll move on.
I like it.
Because actually this is probably a good segue into the next game. I also wanted to get Cooper Kupp into my DFS lineups this week. He did not deliver at all last week, but that was because the Rams had the game against the Arizona Cardinals wrapped up by halftime. This is a different beast having to go on the road and play Tampa Bay, so I want Cooper Kupp in my lineup. So to get both Cooper Kupp and Davante Adams in my lineup with Rodgers, I have Dillon, I have Allen Lazard, and I'm going with DeGuara as my tight end. That's an ultra punt. It's an ultra punt of the tight end position when you have options like Travis Kelce, Dawson Knox, Rob Gronkowski.
It's not a bad punt.
As
far as punts go.
It's a pretty severe punt. It's a pretty severe punt.
Yeah, I could paint the narrative where DeGuara could get a touchdown.
Sure. I'm not necessarily banking on it, but it was just more an opportunity to get Cooper Kupp into my lineup because I think the Rams are going to have to throw.
You make that sacrifice.
Yep. I think the Rams are going to have to throw as much as they possibly can against the Bucs. And that, I guess, is my segue into the first game on Sunday when the Rams go on the road to play Tom Brady and the Bucs in Tampa. The Rams didn't have to do all that much against Arizona to win. Totally different narrative, having to go on the road and play Tom Brady.
And I believe there is a chance that Leonard Fournette's going to be back for this game.
Sounds like Leonard Fournette will be back. Ronald Jones is out.
Keyshawn
Vaughn is also playing.
That's a definite boon to that offense. That helps out a lot in mitigating the losses of Chris Godwin and AB that they are still trying to figure out their offense from. And I mean, Gronk and Mike Evans have been out there doing their thing, but
yeah, they're going to have to carry the passing attack.
Tom Brady needs another weapon out there to dump it off to. So I think it really helps them if they have Leonard Fournette out there, who at some points this year was catching 8-9 passes a game.
Mm-hmm.
So I talking about
that
stacks.
could happen again.
You talking
or
about
tomorrow.
stacks? I
Tom
like
Brady,
that stack.
Leonard Fournette.
Tom Brady, Leonard Fournette, Gronk, Mike Evans. If you can swing the Quattro stack for the Buccaneers, if you can swing it,
It would be cheaper than the Packers stack. That's for sure.
I like that stack. Tom Brady's going to have to air it out. I know you're relying on that other matchup of the Rams having to air it out, but on the other side of that coin, Tom Brady's going to have to air it out. His weapons are consolidated. He was the QB2 at certain points through the season because of how often he aired it out. Had the most yards, I believe, of his career.
Yeah, 5,300. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, we could see each of these players having over 100 yards receiving. I could see Leonard Fournette getting there.
Evans and Gronk, or
Evans, Gronk, and Fournette. I could see them all getting there.
of
Leonard
them.
Fournette's gotten there this season. And if he hasn't gotten there, he's gotten really close.
That's a tougher act to execute in the playoffs.
It is a tougher act to execute in the playoffs, but at least 2 out of 3 of those options can get you 100 yards receiving.
Yeah.
And the other one is going to get heavy workload in both the rushing and the pass game, so I like that stack. If it's cheaper, that means you can afford to pay up and not have to rely on a Josiah DeGuara at those other positions.
Sure.
I think I like that a little more.
Okay. And if you choose to play, any type of DFS,
And the weather? How's the weather for that game?
Weather shouldn't be. I mean, we're talking. It's Tampa. So I actually have not looked up the weather in this game quite yet. It's 54 degrees there now today. It looks like it's going to be, nice Florida weather tomorrow. It should be about 60 degrees at kickoff.
Yeah, I'd take the weather there over the weather relying on unpredictable, super cold, possibly windy Green Bay weather. I would.
So there's no snow in the forecast in Green Bay, but they are calling for winds that could hit 12 to 15 miles per hour. That's not enough for me to be too concerned, but I see your point of maybe wanting to swerve to an equally as good quarterback nobody's as equal as Devontae Adams. But as far as the weapons, you're not too far off in Mike Evans, Rob Gronkowski, Leonard Fournette, pivoting to a situation where the weather is a little bit more comfortable.
And as far as the opponent they're facing, this helps their opponent rack up more yards too if they're not dealing with the elements, because Matt Stafford can run up points through the air just as well as Tom Brady can. So if you're going for a stack, I like that stack. The opponent should force them to put up points. The target share should be somewhat consolidated, and we're talking about one of the most efficient and profitable from a fantasy perspective offenses in the NFL. That's where I'm going.
Do you like the
and
Bucs to win
positional
tomorrow?
variety? So like you hit on your tight end, you hit on your wide receiver, you hit on a running back, you hit on a quarterback. Then everything else is just filling everything else in. I like that. Yeah. That if I'm going for a stack, a heavy stack, I'm going Tampa Bay this week.
Okay. The Bucs are 3-point favorites in tomorrow's game against the Rams. So that would that's a spread I would say that absolutely favors Leonard Fournette. Expected close game, should be heavily involved, assuming there are no limitations or restrictions on his snap count coming back from the injury. But that line, Bucs -3, that does scream Leonard Fournette.
Yep.
But it also, I think it plays well to the Rams passing game. I think the Bucs, if there's a weakness on their defense, it's obviously their secondary. So they're going to have a difficult time covering Cooper Kupp, covering Odell Beckham, covering Van Jefferson, being able to keep all of those three in check all game long. And then you have Cam Akers, who we've talked about a lot over the past couple of weeks.
Involved in the passing game.
Should
more
heavily
than
be
I thought he was going to be. The last game he caught 2 passes, and one of them was a long one.
Yeah, the trick play for Odell to Akers. Yeah, that was pretty cool to see.
And he dropped one on the sideline too. I mean, he was heavily used in the pass game. Well, he's
have to
kind of a
imagine
wild
that
card
happens
player
again.
for them too.
Have to imagine that happens again.
Yep.
Tomorrow. So there could be some fireworks in that game. With conditions as far as the weather should be comfortable. The Bucks are at almost as healthy as they can be. Obviously, you take Godwin and AB out of the equation at this point. They won't have Ronald Jones, but they will get Fournette back. They have Keyshawn Vaughn. Gio Bernard is back after having a strong game last week, so he's an option as a pass catcher. Could see some third down work. Maybe that takes away from Leonard Fournette's opportunities a little bit, just because Bernard was signed originally to get third down touches, like snaps and touches. But should be a good game regardless. If I had this, I would probably pick the Bucks to win that game, despite the fact that they have had injury issues and secondary concerns, just because I can't at this point do anything other than give Tom Brady the benefit of the doubt.
Yep.
So that's the early game. And then that takes us to the final game of the weekend, which is the Chiefs and
you already said it. It might be the marquee matchup of the week, even though we have a week filled with great matchups, and that's just the nature of the beast this week.
It's a great weekend for football.
We have Chiefs and the Bills, the AFC matchup we've all been waiting for. The Chiefs,
the one we were hoping to get in the playoffs.
The Chiefs got the better of the Bills last year. The Bills got the better of the Chiefs early in the season. We're gonna see how that plays out. Yeah, we're gonna see how that plays out in the postseason. I mean, there are different factors this game. The Chiefs have turned it on since they played the Bills. They were kind of an ailing offense and defense to that point until they faced the Bills. But on the other side of the coin, the Bills have turned it on of late too. At that point in the season, the Bills were one game away from losing to Jacksonville. It was kind of a weird time in the season. They hadn't really turned it on yet.
Which that happens every year. The teams go through the ebb and flow of the season, where one week they look great, the next week they don't. And it's our natural reaction and instinct to try to make a decision based on how do we think this team's going to perform moving forward. When it's
we do overreact to things. I mean, we overreact to what happened last week just because that's the nature of the beast. But this matchup is truly a matchup that could go either way. I think the Bills, top to bottom, have a better team.
Their defense is better.
The Chiefs.
Their defense is better, even with not having Tre'Davious White.
The Chiefs have better top-end options. Obviously, yes, I do believe that if there's a wide receiver in the league that can keep pace with Tyreek Hill, it's Stephon Diggs. But the Bills don't have a Travis Kelce.
No, Dawson Knox has had a really good season, but obviously we're not quite putting him. We're not putting him in that tier yet.
No.
We're talking about the best tight end in football 5 years running.
We're talking about a guy that perennially hits 1,000 yards receiving, and Dawson Knox, to his credit, has been a great fantasy tight end this past year, but his yardage numbers haven't gone up all that much. His touchdown numbers have. So, I mean, we're talking about two different beasts here. And the Bills have found their running game late in Devin Singletary. But on the other side of the coin, the Chiefs, enrolling with anybody but CEH, have found success. They found success with Darrell Williams at certain points in the season. They found success with using Derek Gore sparingly in certain spots throughout the season. They found success last game using Jerick McKinnon of all pieces. And he was out there looking like an electric, almost borderline RB1.
He had a great game.
Great game
last week.
So, I mean, there's wild cards everywhere. Byron Pringle can turn it on and get 3 touchdowns. Or 2 touchdowns. It can happen because it's Mahomes. So while I feel really good about the Bills, because they have the better team top to bottom, you can't count out Mahomes. And you can't count out Hill and Kelsey. And you can't count out the wild card factor of just one of these guys catching fire.
No, it doesn't take much. Not against any opponent.
the
especially at
Chiefs'
home.
defense has been. I like that the Chiefs' defense has been better of late, but they haven't been as good as the Bills. I am a little bit worried about how they're going to deploy Tyrann Mathieu. But I'm mostly worried about some magic that Mahomes is going to pull out of his butt.
I would have to think, Mathieu covers the tight end.
I don't know.
I
think he's going to move all around the field.
Right. They'll deploy him in different roles.
But I'm not worried about the Chiefs defense despite how good they've been of late. I'm not worried about the Chiefs defense because I think the Bills offense can win in so many ways and hit you in so many ways and catch fire. And then they've caught fire in every game this year, over the last stretch. I think I'm just worried about Mahomes, man. And Mahomes is that ultimate wild card. He's that guy. He's that guy that can change it.
There's reason to be concerned about Mahomes. He has proven early on in his career he's already one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and in all likelihood will be for at least the next 10 years. That being said,
on the other side of the ball, you got Josh Allen, who's almost just
if I had to pick a quarterback who I wanted to go to battle with for in a playoff game right now, Josh Allen feels like that dude. He's coming off a perfect game last weekend, basically. He orchestrated a perfect game for the Bills offense. And I know that they are just top to bottom a better team than the New England Patriots. Right. They're better than the Patriots, but that's still a division rival who played well against the Bills in the regular season. And the Bills dismantled. That's still
defensively the best coach in the NFL.
Right, and one of the best maybe top to bottom the best defense in the NFL. The Bills dismantled them. If there's one thing you can say coming off of wild card weekend, coming into the divisional round, if there's one area where the Patriots, the Bills' opponent last week, has on the Chiefs, the Patriots have the better defense. The Bills destroyed them. The line on this game is only Chiefs 1.5. Chiefs are only 1.5 favorites. That's a Buffalo line.
No, I think Buffalo's gonna win this game, and that's just not just me being a fan. You just can't count out Mahomes.
You can't count out Mahomes. He's all he knows as far as the playoffs is playing playoff games at home.
Bills-Bengals shootout would be a lot of fun.
That would be fun.
That'd be a lot of fun.
That would be fun.
A lot of fireworks. I would like that a lot.
Not
to mention the Bills would host that game, so it might be a little biased there too. But whatever.
I mean, this is the biggest matchup for the Bills this season. This is the biggest, regardless. Right.
I mean, that goes without saying. I mean, we're in the playoffs. Every next matchup, bless you, in the playoffs is the biggest matchup.
I think this poses the greatest threat, though. If they advance next week, all due respect to the Titans and the Bengals, whoever comes out,
the Bills might be looking at this like
you feel worse about playing the Chiefs.
If we win this, not that this is our Super Bowl. Your video went out.
We're back.
Word. Not that this is their Super Bowl. You hear that thrown out a lot. Oh, this is a team's Super Bowl. This isn't the Bills' Super Bowl. But their consensus best bet to be in the Super Bowl in the NFL.
It's pretty damn close.
So you kind of feel like you're beating the best team if you beat the Chiefs. You kind of feel like, all right, and you got that monkey off of your back. You beat the Chiefs. You got that monkey off your back. Now you got to deal with the Super Bowl monkey, but at least you got the Chiefs off of your back.
Obviously, if whoever wins next week is the championship, the conference championship game is their biggest game. I think this is the Bills' biggest challenge.
Yes.
Like next week, whoever their opponent is won't be, it'll still be a difficult matchup. It's two good teams between Tennessee and Cincinnati. Kansas City's their biggest challenge. There's no doubt. Because Kansas City is anybody's biggest challenge. Because of the threat that they pose on offense. That being said, I think I would take Bills plus 1.5. And I think they can get it done tomorrow. It's going to be a tough game. You have to go into a hostile environment in Kansas City. But this is a different Bills team from last year because now they're playoff tested. Last year, the outcome was not unexpected. They weren't ready. As excellent as Josh Allen proved to be last year, that team just wasn't ready last year. This year, I think they are. And that's what it takes in the NFL. It takes losses in big games to learn what it takes to flip the script when you get another opportunity. This is that other opportunity for Buffalo. I think they can get it done. If there were a road team that I would feel, quote unquote, most confident about, it's Buffalo, which is not an indictment on Patrick Mahomes. It's a vote of confidence for Josh Allen. That's how good he has become.
Yeah, I like that.
That's how good Josh Allen has become. He's my dynasty QB1. Obviously, We're kind of having an NFL discussion right now, not necessarily a fantasy football discussion right now, which we can absolutely get into. I know we don't have a ton of activity right now in the chat room, but anybody who's in here and hanging out with us.
Well, we're about to get to a discussion on these on the 2022 redraft rankings for running backs as it stands right now. But we just wanted to get through the playoff.
Wanted to talk through the
playoff
game
schedule.
Yeah, the
Yep.
Game.
Yep.
Because this is, at the end of the day, this is what is. Yes, we all play fantasy. We love fantasy, but we are fans of our teams as well, and this is what it's all about. This is the part of the season where it's like, this is what everything comes down to from a fan perspective.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think in a weekend of phenomenal matchups, I think Chiefs-Bills is the marquee one of them. And I can see the Bills pulling out a 3-point win. I can see it. Mahomes is phenomenal, but Josh Allen's
I feel like we're going in circles.
That's all I wanted to say.
Let's swerve
That's
to
all I
that
wanted
2022 redraft running back ranking discussion.
We can do that.
First up, just pretty much chalk, right? We're going Jonathan Taylor here. He's RB1 for the 2022 redraft. If we're going on into the 2020, if we were drafting today, Jonathan Taylor would probably be the 101, and he's the RB1, obviously. Right?
The only player who could conceivably dethrone him is Derrick Henry. And that would be dependent upon monster playoff games for the Titans this season. I don't see how it happens. I don't see how it happens. Derrick Henry is excellent, but Jonathan Taylor just had an outstanding, phenomenal season. I can't not put him one. Derrick Henry would need to have a monster game today that leads to a Titans win, a monster game in the championship game that in all likelihood leads to a Titans win, and a really strong game in the Super Bowl. Then I would say, okay, we actually need to have a conversation about, do we really want to put Jonathan Taylor over Derrick Henry? But right now, we have to. Right now, there's no choice. Right now, you have to have Jonathan Taylor number one.
Dirtbag, what's going on? How you doing, bro?
What's going on, man?
And Jonathan Taylor, I really like him. And if I had the 101, I'd be picking him first. But do I think at the end of 22 he's going to be the RB1? I don't know.
Yeah.
It depends on
I would say
a few
he
things.
finishes top 3.
Yes. That I would agree with. But there are a few things that give me pause with him. He's going to get all the work. But this year he had 18 touchdowns on the ground.
That will
and
likely
2 touchdowns through the air.
regress.
I don't think he's going to regress with those 2 touchdowns through the air, but 18 touchdowns is going to come down. He could get this same amount of rushes, 332. I don't think he gets to 1,800 yards. That's a little insane. So I think he comes down to maybe 1,500.
I was going to say, he could do 1,500,
12
sure.
to 14 touchdowns.
Still an RB1 season.
Still an RB1 season. Still a top 3.
Probably still a top 5
RB1 season. But he did this. He did this season while getting targeted the 22nd most in terms of running backs. 21 running backs had more targets than he did, which is something we typically use to be like, all right, if the running back's getting a lot of targets over rushes, that's a plus. Targets and receptions mean more for fantasy than rushes do, especially in those point per.
Yep. Target is 2.5 times more valuable than a carry.
There we go. There's the stat we were looking for.
That's not even catching the ball, just a target.
Now, Jonathan Taylor, his touchdowns should regress. I think some of his rushes regress a little bit. I don't think he gets to 332 rushes. Maybe he hits that 300 mark, 280, something around there. Something in between that 280 to 300 mark, I believe, is what I'd be projecting for him.
I think
fair. His receiving work gets bumped up a little bit. Maybe he doesn't get to top 5, but maybe he jumps into the top 12 in terms of running back targets. Because Nyheim Hines is ahead of him in targets. I think that's backwards. Despite how good of a receiving back Nyheim Hines is, you should be using Jonathan Taylor more in the receiving game. Come on now, what are you doing?
Yeah. Fix that a little bit.
So Jonathan Taylor, despite the regression I'm expecting for him in the touchdown part of his game, I think the receiving numbers are going to pick up a little bit to the point where he's still going to be an easy top 3 running back. I don't feel like you're getting to a point where him outside of injury, where you're drafting somebody 101, and at the end of the season he's not an RB1.
10th best,
which is something you've had to deal with for the past few seasons. The 101, the slam dunk 101, hasn't been a top 10 running back. Zeke, 1 year. Saquon, obviously. McCaffrey. When you're chasing these RB1 seasons, lots of times it doesn't yield the results that you're expecting going in. I think with Jonathan Taylor, even if he doesn't get to that 101 again next year, he'll be 103 at worst.
Should still be a top 3 option.
So I like Jonathan Taylor 101.
Yep.
He's young. He'll be 23 going into next season. And they should not be dealing with Carson Wentz anymore. I don't think Carson Wentz is going to be there.
Maybe. That's a whole other conversation that we can only speculate at this point.
And to your question, Dirtbag, I do not think Deebo Samuel's going to get a running back tag next year.
Probably not.
Because he's still. We've seen running backs used we've seen wide receivers used in the run game and not get the tag.
I mean, Deebo gets utilized in that regard, significantly more than most.
Right.
Is it possible? I guess maybe. I mean, he still had 77 catches.
That was this year, though.
Yards this year.
We didn't see Deebo Samuel. We've seen Deebo Samuel put up a wide receiver 1 season receiving to start his career. So I don't think that changes. It's not a Cordarrelle Patterson situation where we never really were sure what he was. Is he this? Is he that? Deebo Samuel came in, was a wide receiver, and did work. And then he got injured. And now he's come back. He's being used in a versatile manner, but he's a wide receiver. And I think that's the mindset they're going to be coming in with. Not that I don't think that he deserves to be tagged. with that dual eligibility. I do, actually. I just don't think he's going to get it.
He had 59 carries in 16 games. So that's it's a little more than 3.5 a game. I'm not sure that's enough work to qualify designating him as a running back hybrid. I would guess no.
I don't think it is.
I would guess no.
I don't think it is.
It's going to be quite a welcome surprise for Debo owners if he does. But I think surprise is the key word there.
Yeah, in 15 games as a rookie, he had 14 attempts.
Yeah, he got you
3 touchdowns on the ground, but it was very minimal work. He succeeded as a rookie as a wide receiver. I think he stays a wide receiver as far as his eligibility is concerned, even though he's super versatile.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, sorry to interrupt you. You were finishing up about Jonathan Taylor.
Oh, no, I think we said what we needed to say about Taylor.
Well, then your RB2 is Derrick Henry, right?
I think it has to be pending, again, what happens in the playoffs. If he comes back today and gets 25 touches, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, a Derrick Henry line, I think that's all it's going to take to say, yeah, this guy's the RB2. I think that RB2, but there will be people who, if that happens, will take him RB1.
Yes. And the only question is health and age. His only question is health and age.
I'm not worried about age for Derrick Henry for redraft.
He's 28.
For redraft, I'm not worried about that. For Dynasty, obviously, I've got a little bit of pause if I have Derrick Henry.
For Dynasty, he's not on my team right now. For Dynasty, if I had him, he's gone. I traded him.
Not if you're a contender. No, I
would have traded him if I was a contender for a 25-year-old and plus. I'd still have an RB1 on my team. I'd have traded him for a lesser RB1 plus, a younger, lesser RB1 plus, and I'd deal with it if he had another 2,000 yard season. I'd just deal with it, because off principle in Dynasty, if you have a 27-year-old consensus RB1 at any point in time, you should probably be selling high. That's me. Now, Derrick Henry, ultimate outlier. He is the ultimate outlier. The last guy I saw like this was AP, where he's just the ultimate outlier.
Where he's good for multiple years after his age 30 season.
Right. Yeah. That's what I mean. Like
Derrick Henry
Frank
feels
Gore
like he could be that
was
guy.
used in the NFL after 30 for many years, but he wasn't an RB1 in fantasy. AP is the only guy that I can point to who, in his 30s, was an RB1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Derrick Henry could do that.
He could. And that's why I think he's, probably ultimately, regardless of what happens in these playoff games, he's probably the RB2 next year, if not the RB3. That's just it. Like, look at what he did in 8 games. I don't know that there's another running back I want over him right now, assuming if he's healthy, if it's like Derrick Henry's fine for week 1, 2022, I'm drafting him 2nd overall.
Yeah, there's no running back that I would take over Derrick Henry at RB2, is what it comes down to me. Dalvin Cook is great, but as far as age concerns, he's going to be 27, so it's not like he's
Dalvin Cook is really good. Alvin Kamara is really good. Austin Eckler is really good.
They're not Derrick Henry. Yeah. RB2 Derrick Henry.
Yeah. Yep. So that's the top 2. I think it's relatively easy. I think after that, it's now you start to really have the conversation. Who do you take at number 3? This is probably where scoring comes into play a little bit. Your league's scoring could influence what you want to do. I think I would ultimately go
James Conner.
Right now, boy, did I get burned on that this year. I did. You know what?
I picked him up everywhere. He saved me in best balls.
Can I just say?
I went Cam Akers real early in a lot of best balls. But I got James Conner late and Sony
Took a lot of
Michel
James
late
Conner.
everywhere.
Well, that was smart.
Yeah, worked out.
Can I just say about James Conner? I put out a video about him to sell, maybe middle of the season or so, maybe a little before middle of the season.
Hey, the process was right.
The process
That's
turned
what I'm
out to
talking
not be totally wrong because for the fantasy playoffs weeks, I think 16 and 17, he was out.
Sell
So he maybe
27-year-old running backs, dude. In
He-
Dynasty. That
He
was your
helped
point.
you. He helped you get to the playoffs, but he didn't help you win playoff games. So that's all I'll say.
Your process was sell high on a 27-year-old, 26-year-old, 27-year-old running back with not great athleticism. And I would follow that logic all day.
I was
So I
saying
don't
do it in
fault you for that.
redraft. I was saying do it in redraft as well. Essentially, like
Yeah.
the message was sell him if you have him, but he turned out to
Regardless,
be.
he's
I
not
think
in the discussion here. Are you going?
No.
Are you going Dalvin Cook here?
No,
for
I think
RB3?
ultimately I would go, I don't really play in standard leagues. Most of my competitive scoring, or most of my leagues that are competitive, the scoring is at least half PPR. I would go Austin Eckler.
Okay.
I'd go Austin
another
Eckler.
27-year-old, but one that I have less concerns on over.
Yeah, I mean, he's had some durability issues in his career, but he's not. Austin Eckler is the polar, as far as running backs go, Austin Eckler is the polar opposite of Derrick Henry. He's not going to get 400 carries out of the backfield.
He's never had a
1,000
1,000-yard rushing season.
No, because he's a PPR monster.
He'll
He
have
catches a ton of
800 yards
passes.
and 800 yards, and
Right.
he'll be an RB1 in any PPR format. And I'm taking that. I
I'm
like
taking
that.
Austin
At
Eckler.
RB3,
Yeah,
I'm taking
I would take
that.
Austin Eckler. I would take Eckler third overall. The pass catching prowess is elite. He's tied to, we mentioned Justin Herbert earlier in this pod. Elite quarterback, elite young quarterback that he's tied to. It's possible that Mike Williams moves on.
Even if he doesn't,
He doesn't.
It's not bad to have two weapons on the outside. It isn't. And Jared Cook shouldn't be with the team. So I think that there's a possibility they go out and get like a David Njoku, OJ Howard type, just a hyper athletic tight end who hasn't panned out elsewhere, and see if they can shoehorn him in. Evan Ingram even. But regardless, the role's solidified. He's gonna get the targets, the dump offs, the running. He's really good, man. He's really good.
He is really good.
I don't really know what to say about him, bro. He's just really good.
He had did he have 20 touchdowns this year?
I'd have to look up his stats, but
He had 20
I mean,
touchdowns.
it's
this
his
year.
best-
He had
it's-
12 on the ground. He had 12 on the ground. He had 8 up through the air.
well, he's one of the most efficient backs in the NFL.
That will come back. That will come back to earth a little bit.
But he was averaging 16 to 19 fantasy points a game last year and the year before that. The touchdowns are going to come down, but again, we want receptions. He's getting
Right.
those all day, every day, and that's not changing.
No, not at all.
They're not going to bring in somebody else, I don't think. They're not going to bring in a young running back behind him.
No, they've spent draft capital on guys like Joshua Kelly and Larry Roundtree the past couple of years. Like
Josh Jackson.
Justin
Jackson.
Justin Jackson's been there for a few years,
Yeah.
but they drafted Larry Roundtree this year. They drafted Joshua Kelly last year. I don't think they're like, those are the complementary pieces that they're going to rock with. They're not going to spend too many resources, if any at all, on the running back position in the draft this year. If anything, they need defense. That, I think, plays once again into the narrative that Austin Eckler is going to get as much work as he can handle. Is he going to score 20 touchdowns? Similar to Jonathan Taylor, we got to expect regression in that department. But you're talking about a dude who should be able to finish top 5, even if he scores 12 touchdowns instead of 20.
I wouldn't put it past him.
It's just hard to that's hard production to replicate.
Yes.
That being said, I would draft Austin Eckler third overall. It's like Derrick Henry, there are some health concerns at this point in his career. Austin Eckler has had, again, some durability issues for longer in his career compared to Derrick Henry. But you can't draft scared.
Eckler was the RB4 in 2019.
Can't
in
operate
PPR.
that way.
I mean, he's the ultimate PPR back. He fluctuated and was RB 26 in 2020.
He got hurt.
He
missed a lot of time. Missed a lot of time due to injury.
And obviously RB2 this past season. So if he's not getting injured, take out 18 touchdowns, because I believe in that one season a few seasons ago, let me see, 2019, when he finished RB4, 3 touchdowns.
He had 11.
And 8 touchdowns. So yeah,
11
touchdowns. So if he gets to 11, 12 touchdowns again, he can still be a top 5 back. I'm taking that all day. That's what I want. Yep.
Yeah. So I would go Eckler third overall.
Yep.
Down to 4. This is I think where it's going to be personal preference, because the player who's in the conversation right now, according to Underdog Fantasy early 2022 ADP, the 4th player off the board right now in half PPR scoring is Christian McCaffrey. Has played 8 games over the past 2 seasons. Has averaged 30 fantasy points a game. In those 8 games.
I mean, if he's in my top 12, he's 11 or 12. I'm not taking him here.
So that's where the conversation begins. Where do you take Christian McCaffrey? How high are you willing to take that risk for
11 or 12?
For probably the only player. Well, I'm also prompting it for the chat. We got a few people in here now. If anybody cares to weigh in about what their personal thoughts are on Christian McCaffrey, you're talking about conceivably the only player, if he were to play 16 games, if being the key word in that sentence, you're talking about the only player in the NFL who could score 400 fantasy points. Christian McCaffrey is the only player who could reach that number.
Well, you're kind of smashing together Derrick Henry and Austin Eckler when you're getting prime McCaffrey.
Right.
You're getting the best of
Is
Derrick
he
Henry
still
and the
is he
best of
prime
Austin
McCaffrey?
Eckler, and then he can
Right.
get you to 400 points.
Yeah.
I don't
Can
think
he
we
do
get
it?
that anymore.
I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm willing to bet that he can do it, but he's less than 2 years removed from doing it. So
I could list the guys here that I would take over him though. Like there's a list of guys that he's not in the conversation for RB4 for me.
Okay. Who's your RB4 that I agree. I just wanted to prompt what the consensus is currently taking right now, according to Underdog Fantasy.
Solid.
That being said, my
RB4 is Najee Harris.
So the quarterback is going to play a big role there. And the question is, who is the quarterback? But you can't get too much worse than 2021 Ben Roethlisberger. So if you assume that Pittsburgh has nowhere to go but up on offense, which is a fair assumption because of how bad Ben Roethlisberger is, because I refuse to believe that Mason Rudolph is the Steelers' starting quarterback in 2022. I don't see it. Najee Harris is set up nicely to get a lot of work next year.
RB4 in standard
and
half PPR, RB3 in PPR as a rookie.
And the Steelers, under Mike Tomlin, funnel production to a single player.
Right, and this is in line with the RB1 outputs pre-James Conner that we expected from the Steelers offense. The whole narrative on getting James Conner was, look at what Lev Bell did. And then when Lev Bell was injured, look at what D'Angelo Williams did. And when Williams was injured, look at the other guys that filled in. Look what they did. This role gives you RB1 production. High-end RB1 production. We're seeing that from Najee. And Najee's a great talent. And the target share is relatively consolidated on that team. And I don't think they go out and draft a wide receiver. That shouldn't be their first, second, third, fourth, or fifth.
No, there's no reason to. They should find a way to invest in quarterback and work on their. They need help on defense.
They just got Freiermuth. They had just bought Najee.
They need offensive line help.
Right,
too.
They need
offensive line
in
and
O-line. They're gonna get a new quarterback. That's all pluses for Najee's favor. Najee is my RB4, and I'm not apologetic about it.
I'm good with that. I think I prefer Najee to Christian McCaffrey.
I prefer Najee to Cook. I prefer Najee to everybody but Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, and Austin Eckler this year.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. The way the Steelers run their offense is they give running back production to one guy. They are one of the few teams left in the NFL under Mike Tomlin to give a workhorse load to one guy.
Yep.
Najee is set up nicely for a top 5 season next year because there's nowhere to go but up from the quarterback position. And you have to imagine the Steelers do what they can to improve on defense, which helps a run game, and the offensive line, which, you guessed it, helps a run game. So I'm totally fine with Najee as my RB4 as well.
Now, at this point, I think it gets...
This
point is the preference point. This point is the what do you like more. This point is the what format are you playing in. Because at this point, I have either Alvin Kamara or Dalvin Cook in this spot. And if it's PPR, I'm going Kamara. But if it's standard, I'm going Cook. And if it's half PPR, it's preferential.
Yeah, it's negligible.
They're both the same age.
Similar
I think I'm going
sets.
Kamara.
Dalvin Cook's a better between the tackles runner. Kamara's a more elite option as a pass catcher. Dalvin Cook can do it, not as well as Kamara, but Dalvin Cook is a better runner than Alvin Kamara.
Dalvin Cook is the type of guy where he's probably going to get injured pretty soon, and having injuries he's not going to be able to recover as well from given his age. And I mean, I could see Dalvin Cook hitting a cliff sooner than I could see Kamara doing it, with them both being at 27. Kamara's more fallout.
He's been more durable and has less wear and tear.
Proof. He's going to be involved in the pass game. He's been involved in the pass game his whole career. He's one of those Austin Eckler guys. He was the Austin Eckler before Austin Eckler this year. He wasn't getting you 1,000 yards on the ground every year, but he was getting you 900 and 900 and 18 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going Kamara at RB5 over Dalvin Cook, and then I'm going Dalvin Cook because Dalvin Cook is a really good running back.
Yeah.
He just doesn't deserve to be top 5 for me. Maybe that's the bias.
He had a string of a couple of years where he was drafted in the top 5. That might be over.
He's never been somebody that I've looked for in drafts. He's never been somebody that's been on any of my fantasy teams. So I do feel like I have a little bit of bias. I've never really loved Dalvin Cook.
Right. He's a good player.
He's my RB6. He's a good player. But I like Alvin Kamara more. But at this point, I acknowledge that it's preferential. Depends on.
Yeah, I think you can. I'm inclined to agree. Like the 5-6, it's kind of. I'm not going to give you a huge argument either way if you want to put Cook over Kamara. And
Which
vice
way are
versa,
you going?
I would lean Kamara.
Okay.
I would lean Kamara. And Dirtbag said he's not doing. Is that we're probably talking about McCaffrey here? Yeah. If I've right now today, January 22nd or 1st, whatever, the 22nd.
He's not gonna fall. The hype pieces are gonna come. They're not gonna draft
I would
a
take
running
McCaffrey.
back in the. They're not gonna.
I'd be willing to
they're not
take a
gonna
shot
draft
like
a
8 or
running
9.
back. They already got Chuba there. They're not gonna draft a running back, which would tank his stock or anything. They're gonna get another quarterback and in there, and it's gonna up the hype on Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is gonna be overdrafted this year. He's gonna be overdrafted this year because the hype machine is undefeated. But he's still not in the conversation for me, even after Dalvin Cook at RB6. At that point, we are getting into the Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb, Antonio Gibson, DeAndre Swift, Christian McCaffrey, Aaron Jones.
That's the
discussion.
That's the territory where he falls right now. That's where McCaffrey falls. I would probably
you take McCaffrey here at RB7? It's tough.
I might. It's kind of like a flavor of the day type of thing. There's going to be days where I prefer a guy like Joe Mixon or DeAndre Swift or Antonio Gibson. I like all of these guys. I think J.D. McKissick is a free agent for Washington. So if he walks, You have to believe maybe Antonio Gibson finally starts seeing a little bit more work in the passing game. This is kind of the you can. It's kind of up to you. Again, this is kind of like a personal preference type of thing. Joe Mixon probably deserves to be number 7, but do you think he regresses a little bit next year? DeAndre Swift, is he able, do the Lions improve enough in the win department where DeAndre Swift doesn't become a shutdown candidate next year?
DeAndre Swift was, not DeAndre Swift, that Detroit offense over the last 5 games where DeAndre Swift wasn't playing was a different Detroit Lions team than the Detroit Lions team that Swift was playing on. Different team. Whether that's unlocking Amon-Ra St. Brown, I don't know. But that team was different, and Jared Goff was different in those last 5 games. Christian McCaffrey, I think I would take McCaffrey over Swift. Joe Mixon's in there in the conversation there too. I think I would take Christian McCaffrey's upside over Joe Mixon's upside because we've seen.
I gotta take a long, hard look at that.
Joe Mixon this year was his ceiling. I don't think he sees that's the ceiling that he saw this year. Again, you talk about possible sell high running backs.
Not that I love the idea of selling Joe Mixon.
I don't love the idea of selling Joe Mixon as a person that has Joe Mixon in Dynasty. But I might be thinking right now might be the time to sell Joe Mixon. For once, he's made it yards. Right. For once, he made it through a full season healthy and produced the entire season. What was the thing about Joe Mixon? He would get 8 games into the season, not be putting up a ton of work, and then turn it on in the last 5 to 6 games of the year, enough to put up an RB1 season. But it was always, imagine if he put it together for a full season. And then in the seasons where it looked like he was starting hot out the gate, he'd get injured. Yeah. And it would be Gio. We'd be seeing Gio for stretches. We never saw that this year. This is when you sell Joe Mixon based off of just that. Do I think he can continue to have RB1 years in an ascending offense? Absolutely.
Yes.
But this is when you sell.
In theory, if somebody's willing to give up a haul,
right?
If somebody's willing to give up a haul in Dynasty for Joe Mixon, which they might, I feel like Mixon's hard to sell though because you're not going to want to sell him for less than a haul, and you're going to need to find somebody who's willing to pay up. I feel like he's tough to hold on to, I feel like he's tough to sell, which is not necessarily a bad thing if you keep an RB1 on your team. But
we're going to get into some guys here that are going to.
For redraft, I would put Mixon 7.
He's 1 year away, theoretically, from being Ezekiel Elliott, because he's 1 year away age-wise from Ezekiel Elliott.
Well, he doesn't have the career workload that Zeke had at this point in their careers from an age perspective.
True. But he's 1 year from being away from being a 27-year-old workhorse.
Yeah,
who's got it done mostly through the tackles and accumulated hits and picked up
I'd say
injuries.
he's a year. I think Mixon's a year away from being a year away as far as selling.
Okay, fair.
I would put Mixon 7, but I think tentatively right now
you would put Mixon
this
over
is
McCaffrey.
where I would put Christian McCaffrey upside. This is where I would slot him in at 8.
Okay.
This is where I would swing for the fences, because at this point in the draft, whether it's a 10-team draft or a 12-team draft or even a 14-team draft, you're at the end of the first round, which means you will be able to loop back and get another good player at the top of the second round. So in the event that McCaffrey falters, if you do it right, if you get if you get one of your 2 picks right, if McCaffrey falters, but you land let's say you land an anchor wide receiver, or you land an Antonio Gibson or a Cam Akers or an Aaron Jones, you'll still be fine. I think at 8, this is where, as far as the running back rankings.
Actually, I got a swerve. It's not 11 or 12. I think at 7, I'm going Christian McCaffrey.
Okay, I think I would say 8. So you would take him over Mixon.
I would. Yes.
Okay.
I would. because
I would
prior to this season, Mixon was always a guy you were worried about getting injured. Christian McCaffrey currently is a guy that you're worried about getting injured.
You're worried about that with McCaffrey right now.
Yeah. But if you look at points per game, still, even this year, McCaffrey's ahead of Joe Mixon. McCaffrey's ahead of Swift.
Yes.
Points per game. Now, the worry about him picking up an injury and not being available for you is real. But at RB7, I'm going upside over availability because you can't, to a certain extent, you can't predict injury.
Right. Yeah, not at all. So I am okay. This is where I'm okay slotting McCaffrey in. Now, we're just doing the top 10 running backs, and we're rounding this out as we, close up shop in the next 15 minutes or so. We're just talking about the top 10 running back. We haven't even factored in the likes of, would you take Devontae Adams or Cooper Kupp over him? So you're talking about in our mock in this situation, McCaffrey could be available at the 9th or 10th pick. I'm good with that. I'm good with that roll of the dice. I'm good with slotting in McCaffrey around the RB8. I still might lean Joe Mixon for now at the RB7 spot, but I think McCaffrey at the RB8 is a good roll of the dice. It's a good gamble to take because, once again, you're talking about the only player who could average 30 points a game for the season.
Right.
So I would take that shot.
We're expecting a workload decrease for McCaffrey. But even with a workload decrease, like what he saw this year, he was the 6th best running back in terms of points per game.
He's still a very safe RB.
Who was ahead of him?
In RB1.
Who was ahead of him? Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, Leonard Fournette, and Najee Harris were ahead of him in points per game. But he was ahead of Joe Mixon. He was ahead of Alvin Kamara, James Conner, Dalvin Cook, DeAndre Swift, Nick Chubb, Cordarrelle Patterson. Points per game god.
Yeah, he's still
that upside at RB7 is worth it for me. And
that's where I'm willing to go.
Me being a big Joe Mixon fan,
you're willing to put McCaffrey.
I'm willing to put McCaffrey over him because
look, I'm not gonna fight that too hard.
Yeah.
Because I think now you're talking about the 7, 8, 9, 10 range of your redraft.
Upside. I'm going upside.
Yeah, I'm good with that too. Okay, so we have the top 8. Let's take down the last 2, and then we might be shutting this down so that we can get everybody set for give some time, get ready for playoff football. But who do you have at 9? So far, we have Taylor, Henry, Eckler, Najee Harris at 4. Personal preference or you're scoring 5-6 between Kamara and Dalvin Cook. And then again, kind of personal preference between Mixon and McCaffrey, 7-8.
Right.
Who do we have at 9?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. Every single time we have a tier break. We got Nick Chubb, who, if he was given the full RB1 workload and Kareem Hunt wasn't there, would be
I think Hunt
4 to 5
spots
spots higher than he is right now.
Hunt's there for one more year. Is that?
Yes.
I think that's correct.
And
he's
not getting rid of him.
I don't think he's
they're
going
to get rid of Jarvis Landry.
Right.
So Nick Chubb is going to be playing with a 1B next year, and that's the only concern about him, which has me moving away from him because Antonio Gibson doesn't have a running mate. DeAndre Swift doesn't have a running mate.
Actually, Kareem Hunt doesn't have a dead cap hit this year.
I don't think they're moving away from Kareem Hunt.
Oh,
but
it's still a $6.2. It's a $6.2 million cap hit.
They're not going to clean house.
Nah, they'll keep Kareem Hunt. If anything, they might use him as a receiver a little bit more next year.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're not moving away from Kareem Hunt.
No J.D. McKissic for Antonio Gibson. There's no running mate for DeAndre Swift.
I'll plant my flag right now. If this is a big if, but if J.D. McKissic is not retained by Washington, this is where I'm willing to put Antonio Gibson.
Okay.
I would put Gibson at 9. Washington's not a very good team, but they're better than Detroit. And maybe that's the tier break for me between him being on a slightly better team in Washington and the expectation that, again, in this scenario where J.D. McKissic moves on, you have to imagine Gibson gets more work, gets more snaps and touches on third down.
Considering he was a wide receiver in college. Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of criminal the way he's been used in the NFL.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Yeah. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Washington sorely needs to upgrade in a slew of areas, starting at quarterback. If they're able to improve even marginally, and if their defense is able to get back not to their levels where they were in 2020, but if they can be somewhere in between where they're not as great as they were in 2020, but they're not as bad as they were in 2021. If they can be a little bit more respectable, the defense helps. Obviously, the offense is, that contributes more opportunities primarily for the run game.
And hopefully they can get somebody opposite. Hopefully they can get somebody opposite McLaurin, because they tried the De'Ami Brown experiment at rookie wide receiver. It didn't work out yet.
He could still develop.
They tried
he's a young guy.
Curtis Samuel. That didn't work out at all.
If he gets healthy, I'm
not making excuses. It didn't work out. It didn't work out. Chances are they could, if they go out and find another running mate to slot in as a true number 2 to McLaurin, to open things up, could be very interesting for Antonio Gibson. But DeAndre Swift is still up there for me. He's still the number 1 for me over Gibson.
Would you put Gibson 10, or do you have another guy there?
No, I'd put Gibson 10, but DeAndre Swift is ahead of him for me. He is.
So,
even despite the fact that Detroit was a terrible team, worse than Washington, DeAndre Swift was 3 points per game better than Antonio Gibson over the course of the year. Now, I know Antonio Gibson was banged up in the middle there.
Gibson dealt with
and Swift's game where he didn't play doesn't count in points per game. I get it.
Right.
But Swift was top 10.
A little more productive on a per touch basis.
Right. I gotta give it to Swift. He's more of a receiving back at this point. I chase receptions.
Oh yeah, he's more of the J.D. McKissic role if we're making comparisons, which is obviously.
And given the fact that they've found a number 1 wide receiver in Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Hawkinson is coming back next year, and they're probably gonna make it a priority to find another guy to pair with Amon-Ra St. Brown on the outside, open up the offense a little bit. That benefits DeAndre Swift. I think DeAndre Swift, he's on that Alvin Kamara, Austin Eckler track.
Yes.
Except he's more of a rusher, I believe. Maybe not. I
would think so. Okay.
But he's young. He's already getting all the receptions in the world. The offense is growing before our eyes or was during the regular season.
Yeah.
Todd Gurley was a runaway RB1 with Goff at the helm. So Goff at the helm doesn't scare me away from maybe not. Maybe he can't put up an RB1. He did it. So that doesn't scare me away from Swift, that Goff is there at the helm. I like Swift as my RB9.
Okay.
For the same reason fair. I like Kamara over Cook.
Yeah, that's fair.
I gotta be consistent with my rankings.
Right.
Deciding between 2 players, I'm taking the receiving back.
And Gibson could expand into that role. Swift already has it.
Right.
That's fair. So Swift, Gibson, 9-10. I'm okay with that. The elephant in the room. And then this is all I have as far as rounding out our top 10 running backs for 2022 redraft. Like very early, way too early ranking.
Well, let's wrap it up at 12. Let's get through top 12 and then we'll call it a day.
The elephant in the room is Javonte Williams.
Then speak on it. Do it.
If Melvin Gordon re-signs, I think he's a back-end first round, top of the second round pick with a little bit of downside because of Melvin Gordon. We saw how explosive Javonte Williams is. We saw his ceiling games. They were excellent. He is asked to do a multitude of things in that offense. if Melvin Gordon re-signs, Javonte Williams is, the RB 10, 11, 12. He's in that conversation. If Melvin Gordon walks, Javonte Williams is in the top 8.
I'm not willing
potentially
to
over.
I think you're your bias is showing.
No, I think
if Melvin Gordon doesn't play, then he's top 10. If Melvin Gordon plays, he's top 16. If Melvin Gordon plays,
it's not
he's
that
not
much of a bias. You're still talking about at worst a mid, like a high end RB2.
RB16, RB18. Yeah, I believe if Melvin Gordon plays, he already showed that he can be a high end RB2. If Melvin Gordon plays on the team, I'm not going to say I'm ranking him ahead of. I'm ranking him as an RB1 because that's being ambitious. And that's putting
Melvin Gordon plays, he's a low end. I'll say he's low end.
If Melvin Gordon plays, he's a very, very high end RB2 with the ability to post RB1 weeks, which puts him in the RB18, RB16, RB14 range. Higher than RB18, which is why I said RB16. So yes, we're talking about a few positional slots here. We're splitting hairs, I guess you could say.
Okay.
But I'm not willing to put him up at top 10, top 12 if Melvin Gordon's playing. I think that's a little bit ambitious, and I think your bias is showing.
You say that, but I don't have any like dynasty shares of Javonte Williams. This is not driven by like a personal this is not driven by like a personal motive or narrative to like hope that he's doing well. I just am a believer in the talent. I think he becomes the 1A next year regardless, because I think they drafted him to be in that role. They traded up in the second round to eventually allow him to take the reins.
Offense. They were splitting the work all year. So if
Melvin Gordon
comes back, they're going to be splitting the work again. They are. And you could say, sure, maybe he gets a few, like 2 to 3 more touches a game, and then you accumulate that over the course of the season, and then it's meaningful at the end of the season. But he's still splitting a significant amount of work with a significant veteran.
I would be willing to bet,
who at times looked better than he did this year.
And to that point, I would be willing to bet on Javonte being able to maintain some more consistency from this past year to this year than Melvin Gordon.
So you're ranking, if Melvin Gordon gets signed there, if
Melvin Gordon,
let me finish my question.
Okay.
If Javonte Williams is playing with Melvin Gordon like he was this year, next year, and you know that going into a draft.
Yeah.
Are you drafting Javonte Williams over Nick Chubb? Both have running mates in the backfield who get a significant amount of work, sometimes up to 50% of the work, if not averaging up to 50% of the work. Are you drafting Javonte Williams over Nick Chubb?
I'm not ruling it out.
If Melvin Gordon is there,
I'm not ruling it out.
The only way I do that is if we know Melvin Gordon is gone. We got 5 people in the chat. Let us know how you feel about this last question before we wrap this up, because this is an interesting question.
Yeah, this is going to be, as far as like the end of the first round in redraft goes, this is going to be one of the conversations of the offseason.
And we're going to pick up with this at this point in our rankings next live stream. So when you see us on Tuesday, we're going to start the conversation with this Javonte Williams, Nick Chubb, who goes here situation, because this is super interesting.
The Antonio Gibson, DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, like this is that.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about Cam Akers. We haven't talked about J.K. Dobbins. We haven't even brought up Zeke or Saquon.
Those two are down the list.
Elijah Mitchell's got to be in there. I mean, Rashad Penny, the RB1 over the last month of the season. If he
Leonard Fournette.
I like that. But yeah, Leonard Fournette, the the RB5 by points per game in 2021?
James Conner. I'm just kidding.
No, I'm not. No, come on now.
I think Javonte has low-end RB1 upside. Regardless.
Yes, but he's a high-end RB2 if he's playing with a running mate. He has low-end RB1 upside weekly playing with that running mate, but he's a high-end RB2. Until that running mate is gone, in which case he's a high-end RB1. I will give you that. If he's not playing with anybody next year, outside of Mike Boone and some 5th rounder they draft who doesn't matter.
Sorry to that 5th rounder, but yeah, I got your point. But okay.
In this discussion, I mean, doesn't matter in life, just in the boundaries of this discussion. Mm-hmm. Then Javonte Williams would probably be a choice between Javonte Williams, Alvin Kamara, and Dalvin Cook for me. At which point he'd be your RB5.
Oh, there you go.
I agree with you there. I just think you're
but only if
him
Gordon's
up.
not there.
Only if Melvin Gordon's not there, because if Melvin Gordon's there, they're splitting the work pretty evenly. They are. I still believe that.
Okay.
And that at that point makes him a high-end RB2 with RB1 upside. RB16. I say that loosely without really going through the rankings. We're going to get into the rest of these running back rankings up to probably RB20, RB24 next stream on Tuesday. But thank you for joining us today. Those of you that did. Dirtbag, I see you. Appreciate you. We unrolled a Discord.
We
Nick
did.
set up a Discord for us, so you want to shout that out before we end the stream?
Sure. Yeah. It's the link is at the top of the chat, and it's also in the description of this live stream. If you care to join us, I know there were a few people that were interested in the Discord channel over the course of the season, or us adding a Discord channel. The invite is there. Go ahead and click it. We will absolutely get you added if you're interested. If anybody's unfamiliar with Discord, it's very much like a chat room, where it's an opportunity to come hang out. It's an evergreen open chat room where you can have conversations with us. We may not necessarily see it right away, but we'll see it eventually. We have multiple rooms set up. You can talk Dynasty in one room. You can talk trade discussions in another room. There's general topics. There's multiple rooms. We can set more up as we get people to join, and if people are interested in different topics of conversation that you want to see us add, we can do that. Yep. But it's all, it's basically just an opportunity to kind of bring the community a little bit closer together on a little bit more consistent basis. The conversation doesn't have to end at the end of these live streams. If anybody wants to talk fantasy with us, we now have the Discord channel. So again, link is at the top of the chat. It's also in the description. You'll see it in our videos moving forward. Just click the link. We'll make sure we get you added.
And if you're on Discord and you add our names, our names have been coming up on stream, all stream, with the Discord icon next to it. So we got that too. But hey, thank you guys for being in the room, for
appreciate
sticking
y'all
with us through this live stream. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the football that's going to be played today.
Enjoy the football. John will be sweating it out tomorrow when the Bills take on the Chiefs.
Yeah, I'll be sweating it out. Not in this face mask fantasy hoodie, all in my Bills gear, but hey, these face mask hoodies are comfy as hell.
There you go.
So if you want some merch, go and get you some merch. The link is in the description too. But yeah, we will see you guys Tuesday, where we will continue our not rookie running back, but just 2022 redraft running back discussion. Yep. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yeah. Enjoy the football, y'all. Thanks for hanging out.